I'm James Hogan.
And I'm Stacy Miller, and this is the July 2025 edition of Western Wednesdays.
Hello and welcome to Western Wednesdays. I'm James Hogan, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Engagement here at WCU. With me, as always, Stacy Miller, Director of Alumni Engagement. How are you doing?
Woo, great, man. Have we been busy?
I know, it is. It's like we barely have time to catch our breath now, and it's July already.
That's
We're
right.
almost halfway through summer.
Almost halfway through summer, and it has flown by. We've done some amazing things. We've spent such great time with some awesome alumni and getting ready to share Danita Johnson's story.
That's right. Danita Johnson, class of 2005 from WCU. Let me just list out a handful of things here. President of Business Operations at DC United. Essence Magazine's 2023 Power 40 list maker. Washingtonian Magazine's Most Powerful Women in Washington, D.C. Sports Illustrated profiled her. She was the president COO of the LA Sparks.
Now
at DC United. But my gosh.
But most importantly, WCU alum, class of 20.
Sports management degree,
absolutely.
major from the College of Business, somebody who came through Cullowhee.
Yes. And love hearing her talk about, the impact that some of those faculty and staff over there, not that I'm partial to the College of Business or anything.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
A lot of it.
But here, Dr. Ayers, Dr. Gruby, and it's just awesome to hear that from a student.
We are about to take you out to Audi Field in Washington, D.C., where DC United gets to call home. I got to see Stacy geek out, walking around, just taking pictures of everything.
It's not every day that, a kid, we won't say our age, but, that grew up
kid is not the right word,
in the
Stacey.
in the MLS era, right? And to be on that field and watch DC United playing New England Revolution.
It was a great, great time. We'll talk about that more on the other side of the interview. So let's get to Danita.
Let's do it.
Well, Danita Johnson, welcome to Western Wednesdays. Thank you so much for having us here in Washington, D.C.
Thank you for joining me here. It's a pleasure.
Well, we're both really excited because behind us here is Audi Field here in Washington, D.C. Tell us a little bit about where we are right now.
Yeah, so we are sitting on our premium suite level on the north end of our stadium here at Audi Field, where we get to host all of our home matches for DC United. We're also the home for the Washington Spirit, which is part of the NWSL. We're home for the DC Defenders, which is part of the UFL, which is a football league, as well as Power FC, which is a Super League team, another professional Division I soccer league. So we stay busy. Welcome to our home. It happens to be a quiet afternoon here.
It's got to be the only quiet afternoon with all that going on here.
It does not happen often, but we do enjoy a little peace and quiet every once in a while.
That is fantastic. Well, thank you so much for hosting us here, and how exciting to be here in this storied place. Stacy and I were talking about DC United. What a club.
Yeah. That's right. And the history of that and, coming in, I was telling Jim, geeking out a little bit, and all of my love for soccer. But it was exciting to come through and see, the Hall of Fame down there and see some familiar faces, Wayne Rooney, and good stuff.
Great history there. So let's talk about a little bit of your history, Danita. Okay. And starting off with, you're from Fayetteville, North Carolina.
I know.
Down east.
Yes.
And we get a fair number of people from Eastern North Carolina who make it to Cullowhee. Tell us how you chose to come to WC. What was it that drew you to Western?
It's so funny because anytime I actually run into people throughout my career, and I'm like, I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I'm doing what I do, and they're like, wait, really? And I'm like, yes, that is exactly where I'm from. I would say, my journey to Western was a student that was unsure. Right? I wasn't sure about what I wanted to do or who I wanted to be. I was a student that was, a decent student in school. I was never a bad student, but I made good grades. I wasn't the top of my class, but I was a student, right? I was your average everyday student. And I happened to, I believe it was one of my high school fairs or something like that, where you get your pamphlets, all the things that gradually bring you towards a university, right? And I just remember, it's crazy. I visually still remember looking at the pamphlet, I remember reading the program. I remember the bullet of everything of the sports business program at Western. Like, I can visually still see it to this day. And I don't think in that moment I knew, when I selected and looked at that brochure, that my life would turn out this way. But it was in that moment, something to me captured it. And it's kind of crazy. Like, my journey to Western was the simplicity of a student looking for something that fit her and something that excited her. And when I saw the sport management program and it had coaching right above it, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be a coach. I knew that from the beginning. I was like, don't want to do that. And I looked down and I'm like, sports management. Oh, what is that? And I didn't quite know, but I knew I was attracted to it. And that's how my journey to Western started.
Wow.
Gosh, we gotta keep making those brochures.
That's right. And I love that because, we talk about it all the time. From Eastern North Carolina to Cullowhee, you pass a lot of schools.
Yeah.
And so, we work hard to showcase who we are and what we're about and what we offer. And so it's awesome to see that it wasn't a one person that got you there. It wasn't, a recruiting, situation. It wasn't the marching band. But it was truly who we were and what we offered that got you there. So that's awesome.
It wasn't the marching band this time. This time it wasn't the marching band. Next
time.
So you showed up in 2001?
I did. Fall of 2001, Walker Hall, 207B. Still remember my room number to this day.
Walker.
I remember my roommate. I remember the day moving in. And the friends that I have were some of those friends that were on my freshman hall. I am still friends with to this day.
Oh, wow.
And I remember my mom coming up and packing up the car and dropping me off at Walker. And it was a whole new journey for me. I remember I still have my booklet of like my first day photos on campus.
No kidding.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Of my parents dropping me off and being outside the dorm. And it was for me, the first real part of me being independent, right? And starting to make decisions for myself. Yeah. And what I loved about Western was that it wasn't in the middle of a big city. It wasn't where all my friends went. Like, I didn't know anybody. There was one girl from my high school who also went to Western, and that was it.
Wow.
So I didn't walk in with friends. I didn't walk in like knowing. That's why I say it was like my independent journey of really getting to know myself in a new space. And it was a lot of fun. And it was great to like, I mean, it's fun doing this because I don't always get to stop and really think about it. But it was a very pivotal time in my life of transition.
Talk to us a little bit about some of the programs and some of the groups that you took the time to be a part of, and what did that mean to you?
Well, I think what was so welcoming about Western was even right before we came to campus and going to freshman orientation, right? At freshman orientation, it was a time where I connected with a group of girls and guys that became part of my friend group going into freshman year. That's how I found my roommate.
Wow.
Was at orientation, and we all just hung out that whole night. We were in Scott Hall at the time.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we were in Scott for orientation. You know how you did the orientation
Yeah.
weekend? And we were all hanging out in Scott Hall, and we stayed up late and hung out in the lobby and just got to know each other. And that's how I found my roommate, was through that opportunity, and we connected through that. And so I remember coming onto campus, and the first thing we all did, it was really interesting because we kind of moved as a unit a little bit. Obviously, you want like people there. Was Project Care was the first piece to the step of engagement, right? We got into Project Care. We did that. I think it was the first weekend or the second weekend that you're on campus and you do the away trip with Project Care,
Yeah.
Right.
where you have the upperclassmen come in and do the retreat with you. And it really broke the ice from the very beginning. Because at the beginning, you come in as an independent, but you quickly became part of a group of people and you felt connected early. And I think if I hadn't gone on that trip and didn't do that weekend, I was a very shy kid comparative to who I am today, right? And so I don't know if I would have adapted to the college experience as quickly without that. Because those next couple of weeks was us being around each other, spending time with each other, and really developing our friendships, but not only with that freshman class, but with those upperclassmen, which became a critical part of like how I started to learn how to navigate and meet people was through that program. And so that led to me doing other things. I was in the Black Theater group, which I'd never been on stage before. My mom was like, "Who are you?" I was like, "I don't know either."
Did you get to like talked into it, or did somebody sign you up?
Yeah,
or,
it was
you
like
know?
when you. That's the beauty. Like when you associate with great people on campus, right? That have all different interests. you share in those interests,
Yeah.
right? We went to the local church together. We did the Black Theater Group together. I had to sing a solo. I don't sing. I was shocked too. Okay, please don't ever bring up the footage. But, you know,
We need to research
I know,
that.
Right.
You know, got involved in like the student government and eventually became an RA. Right, I became an RA. I think my sophomore year. I was an RA at Scott Hall during my sophomore year, and eventually ended up pledging Delta Sigma Theta while I was there. So it was like one thing led to the
Yeah.
other of that project care kind of being the push to be engaged on campus. And we had the opportunity to work with great leaders on campus. Jane Addams Dunford. Oh my gosh, what was his name? Our other guy who was over student government and diversity. I can't remember his name right now. It'll come to me in a moment. Dewan. I think that was his name at the time. But we all were just engaged, and they wrapped their arms around us to help uplift us, and it was beautiful.
Western at that time, smaller than it is now.
Yes.
But still 6,000, 7,000 students. So you found your people
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Who were some of your people on the faculty and staff who were mentors or early advisors to you? I'm guessing that you probably just walked into Forsyth and said, I am Danita. I am here to be a sports management major. Where do I go?
Yeah, no, it was different. It was like it came over time, right? Like I think about the people that were leading like our student government and our student engagement, like the SGA student engagement
Right.
programs were a part of that conversation and like helped us to become engaged. As I mentioned, Jane Addams Dunford was a big piece for us of like making sure we stayed connected with
Yeah.
one another was really important to her, and the way her family embraced us. Dr. AJ Gruby was huge from a sports management. Once I really started to get into my actual active study
Right.
of sports management, played a big role in starting to engage there. But then it was like, I remember one semester, you know, I took summer school classes because I don't know if you all know this, but I came back and I was a counselor for Upward Bound.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever talked about this
I don't
with
think
you all.
so.
I was, and so it was,
Wow.
I can't remember if I did one summer or 2 summers, but I stayed on campus, took summer courses, and did Upward Bound and helped to mentor kids through Upward Bound and was like kind of an extension of RA. And it was a lot of us were on campus, and I remember taking this African American literature class during the summer program, and all of us that were there took this. And it was one of the best classes I ever took at Western. I had never
English
looked,
class, just
Yes.
by the way, so we're clear. Thank you.
and I can't remember the professor's name, and I wish I did, but she was phenomenal. And if I go, probably look it up. But I think what she helped us do, she helped us understand literature and how to break down books and understand them in a way and have dialogue that still sticks with me to this
Yeah.
day on how I interpret certain things that I read.
Right.
So there was a lot of influence of programming that really played a part in how I became who I am.
That's one. By the way, summers in Cullowhee,
Best.
one of the most.
Fantastic.
It's like the secret season.
It
in,
is.
in WCU, and it's. I worked summer camp 2 years when I was, and we overlapped. By the way,
Yeah.
I was there a little bit while you were there, and summers were always the best.
Yes.
So you had a great community of people. You had others who were kind of putting their arms around you. Were there experiences that you had as a student that were either professional or academic experiences that began to set you up for what you would do after you graduated?
Yeah, I think there was a couple of things that played there. And I think that's when I think about sports specific after I graduated and how that played in. Being engaged in the sports management club was a big piece for me, right? Being in that club helped me to understand like the difference between like becoming an athletic director or working for a professional sports team
Right.
and like playing roles of leadership of understanding different sides of sport was really important for me during that time period. So the sport management club, I also worked with intramurals. So I used to ref basketball games.
Oh
I
my
forget about
gosh.
some of this stuff I did. I ref basketball games and would go out when we did like flag football and soccer. Those programs were me kind of being able to touch the sport in a different capacity and get a different lens. And so all of those pieces really helped me to start to kind of shape my understanding around sport.
Right.
And it was also letting me know what areas of sport I enjoyed the most. And I remember one of the classes I took in undergrad was a sales course. And they put us in the room and you had to like pretend like how to do mock calls and things of that nature. Thank goodness I took that.
That was the
Like-
that was the one.
And that was one of those classes that really helped me to understand a piece of my career that I didn't know was to come when I moved into ticket sales and started to be on the phone. And like, I just got off a call before I came in here trying to maneuver a deal, right? And so that foundational piece really helped me to start to grasp, but also taught me what I didn't like. I was like, well, there's certain things around this business that aren't for me, right? And I remember taking my sport law class and was like, oh, I won't be an agent. It's like, agent life, not for me.
Not going to deal with that.
Same, I understand that.
So I think it was a good balance of integration across the university. I think, I encourage our students at the university to take advantage of the programs.
Yeah.
Right? Even if your friends aren't in it, like a lot of stuff I did on my own. There was things that my friends were engaged in, and there was things that I just went and did because I wanted to experience it. And I think that's one of the things that really helped me. It was like, yes, I have community, but also as an independent, I can do things.
Right. And so I'm gonna dive right into that because you've talked about the leadership skills that you developed and the people who were around you, but it being about you.
Yes.
And what you had to do. You had to take a hold of that. So what is that internal drive, that internal motivation for you that pushes you?
Yeah. These are my self-talks I have with myself. I think there's a few different things that pushed me. I think in the beginning, early in my career, it was just trying to accomplish the next small goal, right? It would be like, I want to be the top salesperson and I want to accomplish that. How do I go about it, right? And I think it was first small incremental goals that really like motivated me. I think now, to answer your question and where I sit, is about like lasting impact and legacy, right? Like, how do I become somebody that in another 10 years, we all look back and be like, she helped change sport in some capacity. She had an impact on people. And like, that's what actually motivates me now, is to be like, I figured a lot of pieces out to this quickly, and it's been an absolute blessing to do. Mm-hmm. But how do I now teach? How do I now give back? And like, that is part of my self-talk that motivates me, is to think that it's bigger than me. This is a service that I do now beyond the day-to-day. Yeah. And so I know, and from my own faith, I feel like God uses me as a tool, right? And so I keep that in alignment, and I need to show up as the sharpest tool in the shed for him in the work that I do. And that means being authentic, treating people well, being consistent in how I show up, and continuing to study and learn. And so I hope that answers your question. I go a tangent, but like, that's how I go about this every day. And I just want to be my best self. And I feel like if I show up as my best self, I will be good to others, and it helps move everything else forward.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're currently the president of business operations for DC United, but you didn't graduate and get that job.
No.
So let's walk a little bit through your career pathway from when you graduated to today.
Yeah, it's internship first. The internship was so critical. Thank goodness, and that was Dr. Gruby's class, that we had that final semester, and we had to go do a full-time like internship.
Away from Cullowhee. That still stands today.
That right there was the game changer for me. If I wouldn't have done that, this wouldn't have. I mean, it could have if that was my destiny, but I don't think it would have happened without that. And so I went to go work for the Fayetteville Patriots, which was part of the NBA G League, and I moved back home with my dad and was in that for that final semester. And that, to me, was my real touch and feel of this from a career standpoint. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's such a critical part, because I think for our students, it matters. Like, don't let the internship bypass you. And I know it's changed so much because it's more competitive, and it's like you got to have like 5 internships where I had 1, right? It's just a little bit different. Right. But I know it's changed, but it does matter, because if you take advantage of those internship opportunities, it will help set a pathway for you. And it gives you clarity. Mm-hmm. I think where I want people to understand in the pathway and how the journey goes is sometimes you could do that internship and just realize it's not for you, and that's okay.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Better to learn that now.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so going in deeper into the journey, it went from there to taking leaps of faith. Going and moving across the country to Bakersfield, California. I didn't have it all figured out, right?
That's a big move.
Yes. But that's what Western taught me, right? Western taught me I don't have to go where everybody is, right? And what I mean by that is, when I talk about my story, when I went to Western, as I said, there was one other girl from my high school that went there. And we were friends, but not like close, right? Like, we knew of each other.
It's a bit of a risk.
Right. And it taught me that I could make any place great. Like I didn't
Yeah.
have to be in the biggest city or do all the things, right? Like I didn't need the bells and whistles. I just needed opportunity. So the first half of my career was about seeking out great opportunities and opportunities that maybe somebody else might have felt like wasn't perfection for them, but I could see the light in it.
So let's talk about some of those opportunities. I know that you made stops with the LA Clippers, and then you got into WNBA. How did those doors open for you?
Yeah, it was, well, I spent a little bit of time in G League. So I was in G League for about 2 years. So when I moved from Fayetteville and I went to Bakersfield, I was in the G League and helped start a G League franchise in Bakersfield, California.
So let's
Yeah.
just let me just ask this question: like, help start a G League franchise.
Yes.
Like, so you're there at the ground level, and there's a lot involved
Absolutely.
with starting up a team, and it's not coming into a story tradition.
Something's already there. Yeah.
You have to do a lot of work.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of work. I work a lot of hours. I'd be afraid to go back and look at the work hours I've done over the years. But, it was also like camaraderie. It was team. It was figuring it out. It was
Yeah.
learning. Like I got to learn at a high level really quickly, which is why
Right.
I've been able to excel
Yes.
in that time point. And when I got into that environment, I wasn't looking for perfection. Right? A lot of times
Right.
you move into these environments, you're like, oh, this is not great.
Right.
I knew what I was walking into wasn't
Yeah.
great. It was like, but what do I do with it?
You knew it wasn't going to be pretty, but it was a challenge to be able to learn so much faster
Yeah.
than something that was already set in stone. And you're only going to learn this. That's
Exactly.
what I love those moments. I love when I get to teach students, talk to students, mentor students, and talk about that.
Yes.
Those opportunities, you can't run from them just because they seem bigger than what you're after, right? Or they
Exactly.
seem less put together because it's your
Right.
opportunity to do something with it.
Right. And you can
That's
take
awesome.
all kinds of things from that. So like it was Bakersfield, then I went to Phoenix and I was Phoenix was my first time in the W. So I was with the Suns and the Mercury in Phoenix back in like 2007.
Wow.
And I did that for about 3.5 years. From there, I moved on and I wanted to manage, I wanted to lead. I left my job with the Suns and the Mercury to go work for a minor league baseball team in Winston-Salem. And people were like, my boss
you
was
doing?
like, what?
What are you doing?
It's like these critical moments. He was like, what are you doing? And I literally said, God's got me, and what's for me is, and I'm telling you, like, I'm gonna make this choice. And I remember going to that job in Winston-Salem, and I was like, oh, what did I do? I was like, what did I do? But 3 to 4 weeks later, I got a call from the league office and was like, hey, there's a job opportunity in Atlanta and Tulsa, Oklahoma. Which one do you want to interview for? So I took a leap and moved away, went back to North
Wow.
Carolina for a short stint. I had just thrown my boxes away because my mother was like, throw these boxes away. And I get
That
a
was a
call about
mistake.
another job. And so I actually quit my new job that I had just moved across the country for after about 4 to 6
Wow.
weeks and moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma and started fresh over in my mid-20s in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Right? And after living in like a Phoenix, Arizona, it's
Yeah.
a very different environment.
Yes.
But again, it goes back to when I say this about my Western story is that Western taught me that you create community wherever you go.
That's right.
And so I was in Tulsa and did that for almost 4 years. And
Wow.
it was a part of the journey. And that was another startup. It was another startup situation. It was a new WNBA team. The Detroit team, the Detroit Shock, moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. They're now the Dallas Wings. Paige Becker's there and all that great stuff. So like I did that for 3 years and helped to do it again, where I was starting something, building something. And listen, like it wasn't this like the most highlighted job. It
Right.
wasn't. I worked a lot. I worked a lot around the clock, and it was tough for me. And it was tough mentally too at that stage because I was a director for the first time, and I was dealing with people's emotions as a leader. I was dealing with making decisions in a different capacity, and I was in my mid-20s. It was hard.
That's tough.
Yeah.
It was
To
very
lead
hard.
at that age is tough.
Yes. And not to feel like you have peers because your peers are working for you.
Right.
It
Right.
was
Your
like-
peers are working for you, and some of those that are working for you have more years of experience
Right.
than you, and that can be difficult.
A gentleman
right?
left because he was like, I just can't do it. It wasn't me. He couldn't take the fact that I was so much younger
Right.
than him, probably because I was a woman and many other things. But
Right.
he respectfully said, I just can't quite do it. And I said, that's okay.
Yeah.
I think there's, well, first of all, I think that your curiosity throughout all of this is what's really intriguing to me. And I think that's, just starting from day one as a college student, your curiosity, your openness to new experiences has been kind of a leading indicator. At what point did you start to be curious about what it would mean to be the president of business operations for a Major League Soccer club?
Yeah. I think for me, and not just a soccer club, but just a president period, really happened as I got ready to leave Phoenix. When I was leaving Phoenix and I was like, I want to manage and lead, I think was when I was like, how far do I go with it? Right? Because I knew the next leap, when I went to Winston-Salem and then then to Tulsa, I knew I wasn't moving around for anything. I wasn't doing it just because at that moment it clicked for me that I was doing this to gain something bigger.
Right.
And I just didn't want to be the salesperson on the floor. I just didn't want to do one thing. And I knew in order to grow and become bigger, I had to take risks. I had to do things that other people weren't necessarily willing to do. Yeah. And I think that's when it started to click for me, is that I had to do something that was unconventional or maybe felt uncomfortable for me in order to gain success that I was looking for long term. And that's when it started to click.
I remember back in 2020 sitting in LA with you and Chancellor Brown and talking all things Sparks and all of the, the things that were going on, all of the initiatives that that you were a part of. And then seeing Danita's going to DC United, which for me, in my soccer heart, I was pumped, right? I'm so excited. But I remember thinking, wait, what? Wait, hang on. And so, to your point, that is a risk, right? And you had to be well prepared for that, but also have the confidence that it takes, not looking like everyone else.
Yeah.
But what's it look like to be the president of DC United from a day-to-day perspective?
Yeah. I think from a day-to-day perspective, and just I'm going to reflect on one thing you noted, and I'm going to hop into the second part, is that for me, when I was at the Sparks, I was the president of the Sparks, and it'll answer this question, is I was almost a little bit in a safeguarded environment. The reason is because, one, I was in women's athletics. I was in a very diverse form, right?
Right.
You saw what the women had done in the WNBA during 2020 and the voices of the WNBA. Being an African-American woman, all of those things kind of played into almost like a safe space for me over time. Right? And I remember taking this job and making that transition into the president of this and being like, I'm not in that safe space anymore. And I remember the first I started in January, February of 2021. It was right around Black History Month. And it was just all the interviews and everything was coming. And it was centered around me being a Black woman. And I was just like, okay, I get it. And, it's part of it. And I had to take a step back and understand the importance too. And the value that it brings to be a voice in this space.
Yeah.
But it also gives you a different sense of responsibility, right? And that different sense of responsibility can feel heavy.
Yeah.
And being like, I came from a place in the WNBA, our voices were loud. If I had an issue, we said it. I was moving into a whole different space, and I was like, can I still speak that way? Can I still do that?
Right, the culture of the league.
The culture of the
and everything.
league was very different in the W, and there was a lot of things still happening around the world coming into 2021
Absolutely.
that I wasn't sure if I could still have that same vocal voice that I was used to having as I stepped into this. And to kind of go into what does it mean to be a president of a MLS team and where that transition came for me, it meant making sure I didn't lose myself.
Yeah.
And my day-to-day is making sure that I can still authentically bring not only my business sense, but who I am as a woman, an African-American woman, to this sport. And I remember my first call, and it was still in Zoom days, and I looked across the board of all the faces on the Zoom, and I was like, there's about 2 to 3 African Americans on this whole entire call, and none of them are running teams. So here we go, right? And I was like, this is a very different space, right? And it's the opportunity.
Yes.
That's exactly what it becomes. And so my day-to-day really became around not only uplifting people of color, things of that nature, but authentically uplifting a business.
Yeah.
And focused around that and making sure I didn't get distracted in something that people would easily get distracted with it.
Sure. And I'm sure too, there must have been a part where you felt like, I need to learn what soccer culture is.
Absolutely.
I need to learn about how these things kind of click and work and where the power center is and all of that kind of stuff. To do that, but to retain who you are is really tricky.
Yeah. Let me tell you, I remember the first slide of like looking at all the things that happen around soccer globally. And I was like, wait, how many leagues are there? I was like, what's this cup? What's that cup? I was like, wait, what's happening here? Because, it's simple in basketball, right? It's very simple.
Yes.
And so I remember those first like couple of weeks and I was like, and I remember in my interview process, and they were like, you deal well with fans, don't you? I was like, yeah, I know how to deal with fans. Didn't know what supporter culture was, know it now.
Right.
It was just an all-encompassing thing on many levels of just being like, what? Okay, this is different. And so I remember listening to podcasts about soccer and just making sure I understood the rules of the game. And like, I knew it, but it was just like, I was like, let me double check my work here and not be that person.
Just to say it out loud, because we were talking about this earlier, like not be the Ted Lasso, right?
Like, I was like, let me make sure I know what I'm talking about.
Danita famously has not watched Ted Lasso. It hits a little close to home maybe, but like.
Yeah, but it was just a lot of that. It was a lot of education for myself, learning the sport, understanding how the business moves, both from a national perspective to an international perspective, which I think is absolutely beautiful.
Right.
And now it's like I'm almost addicted to that part of it. I love the fact that it is more powerful in other countries than it is here. And how do we build it, right? And how do we help it grow here in the States?
Well, on that note, like, is Washington, D.C., is it a great soccer town?
It is. This year we're celebrating our 30th anniversary. As you may or may not know, DC United is one of the founding clubs for Major League Soccer. And so it's a very, very big year for us as we celebrate our 30th. From our days at RFK, when our stands used to rock, whole other story, to this. Right? Like it shows the growth of the game, seeing all the soccer specific stadiums coming up around the US. You see that there is excitement. You see that there's fandom. You see that the different experience it offers is unique for fans around the country from a sporting perspective. And I think it adds value to our portfolio of sport in the U.S. And now it's like we know kids play at a young age. Yeah. How do we keep them engaged at a professional age? What do our systems look like, from pro to college to academies? How are we building upon the game and how are we creating access, right? It's not a cheap sport to play. So how do we create access through programs, academies, community programs? This is a really big thing to uplift. And we have to think about it from all points of view.
So are you doing that by bringing people in the Washington, D.C. area here, or do you bring the team out to the community?
It's a combination of both. One of the programs that has been partnered with us since our founding time at DC United is DC Scores. And what it does is it teaches arts programs such as poetry, along with soccer to kids in like our Title I schools here in DC.
Poetry and soccer.
It's beautiful. Let me tell you,
I'm in the right place.
Yes. I actually just went to the poetry, our city poetry like slam they do with the kids. I was there last week. And these kids are between probably the age of 7 to 15, and they get on stage and they are phenomenal, right? And at the same time, they are learning their soccer skills. So our partners in DC Scores are a great avenue for that we get to combine worlds. So that's one of the ways in which we do it.
That's neat. Danita, you talked a little bit about excitement.
Yeah.
Right. And the energy around soccer. For the soccer junkies and the non-soccer junkies, let's talk about World Cup is coming to the U.S. in 2026. It's been a long time since the World Cup has been in the States.
Yes.
What does that look like from DC United's perspective? What are you guys doing anything to help promote that, to help be a part of that energy and that excitement? And what's that look like?
Oh, it's so exciting for us. And, from World Cup, which was the last one I think was in 94, which became the birth of MLS. Yep. MLS started after the World Cup in 94. I think the first season was 96. I don't say it like I think, but I know. Right. But that's kind of what that flow, and that was the birth of this league. Yeah. So we know next year in 2026 means a lot to us, right? And in the lead up, we're actually hosting the Club World Cup matches here at Audi Field. So we are just a couple of weeks away in June. We'll be hosting 3 Club World Cup matches in partnership with FIFA here at Audi Field. If we were a much larger stadium, I'd be hoping we would be hosting World Cup games, but we're a little too small for those. But we're working through that. For us, definitely we'll be having watch parties and other events, working with the local communities to make sure that we're promoting and really centering around World Cup as a whole. I think one of the beauties of us being in the nation's capital, we get to kind of be that other voice for the World Cup and what it means to the U.S. I think it's a great opportunity for us to build fandom, draw connectivity back to the sport, really be on a large stage, and excited to see how it goes.
Oh, I can't wait.
I know that we've talked a lot about sales and operations, and it's a busy day here at Audi Field. I know you've got a game tomorrow night. So there's, there are trucks coming in and out and people with carts and they're stock in the concession stands. The other side of a lot of this is hospitality and making that game day experience really fun and really cool. You also get to work in one of the most thrilling places. Everybody comes through Washington, D.C. Have you gotten to play host to some really cool people as they come through to catch a game?
Absolutely.
Do you have a great story about that?
I mean, VP Harris was here. We hosted our Truth and Service Classic game, which is a annual football game that we host with Howard Hampton. So I had a chance to meet her. So I thought that was probably, I'm going to set that at probably one of my top notches. And she came out and actually flipped the coin for the opening of the game.
Wow.
Because this was a traditional American football game that we were hosting. And so her and her husband was here and he was great. And it was just such a beautiful day and just something that you don't forget.
Oh, I bet not.
Do you, in those moments, do you get the opportunity to ever kind of step back and enjoy what's happening around you and what everyone is, has worked weeks, days, months to put into place? Do you get to step out of that, or are you constantly on observation mode of everything operationally that's going on?
I intentionally step back.
Good.
So I do. I really actually do. And most people probably wouldn't even believe it. But and it's funny, I tell my staff this every time we take a major event on. I always say, pause for a moment and take it in. If it's in the middle of everything, or if it's just a few minutes at the beginning or the end, whatever it is, just stop and take it in for a moment and really look around what you're doing. And we hosted an MLS All-Star game in 2023. And I'm telling you, I was on the move for 4 or 5 days straight. Everybody's here. All the things are happening. I'm I don't even know when I slept that week.
Yeah.
But I remember standing in the stands. Actually, I wasn't in the stands. I was standing right down the field suite. And my assistant was with me at the time. And I said, just hold everybody for a second. Just give me a minute. And I remember watching the national anthem. And I remember the fireworks going off on the field. And I just stood there for a moment and took it and was like, we did this. And I was like, I just needed the moment.
Yeah.
And I truly believe in savoring moments like that. I started that at a young age because, and I almost stopped doing it. I started at a young age. I used to do it a lot. When you got into work, I stopped doing it. And I remember we did a great event when I was with the Sparks. And my staff was like, it felt like we just did it and moved on. And after that, I was like, never again.
Yeah.
And I intentionally will always go for the pause.
Danita, if you could hop in a time machine, go back to Cullowhee, second floor of Walker, and find yourself, college freshman Danita, just in from Fayetteville. You're breaking down the boxes so you can throw those away because you're not going to need them. And you could find yourself and put your arm around yourself, knowing what you know now, and give yourself a little bit of advice or wisdom. What would you say?
That's such a good reflection. I would just tell myself that everything's going to be okay.
Everything's going to be okay.
Everything's going to be okay. And don't doubt yourself. Keep believing in yourself. Don't doubt yourself. Because I think about those days where I didn't know, right? I wasn't confident. I had a lot to figure out, right? Don't doubt it. Believe in yourself and never stop believing in yourself. And something I say that my actual therapist told me this a long time, not too long ago, a couple years back. She said, you have everything within you. All you have to do is unlock it. And I think that is probably the last notion I would probably tell myself in that moment. So we get a little 2-minute pep talk to self would be in that versus a one line.
Yeah.
But it's all within you. Everything's in you. Everything. Everything you ever wanted or desired is inside of you. All you got to do is figure out how to connect to it.
Danita, it's such a pleasure to spend time with you here at Audi Field. We're so proud of you.
Thank you.
Absolutely so proud of you and all that you represent, both as a sports management major from Cullowhee and also as a pioneer in Major League Sports.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time today.
Thank you. These are my favorite to do with you all. It's so reflective. I so appreciate it.
Thanks for letting us be a part of it.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, not many times do I go to an interview, Stacey, and I come out with a cool scarf like this.
Yes.
What a great time with Danita.
That's absolutely. And thanks to Danita for hosting, our staff and some capital area Catamounts.
We had a great time.
great time.
We went back the next night back to Audi Field and got to catch a DC United game against New England Revolution. Ended in a 1-1 draw.
Yep.
Shucks.
It was a great game, though.
I mean, it was a great game.
It was.
I will say it rained, so we felt right at home.
Yes. Took the weather up there with us.
Yeah. Here I am in July now, wearing a scarf.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you're fully getting prepped for 2026 World Cup,
World
James.
Cup.
Here we go.
I know. I'm so excited. I'm already so excited. So, Stacey, we finished up just one of the coolest things I think we've done in a long time, which was the Ballparks and Brews series.
Yes. So what a great summer, so far. We've been so busy and, our Ballparks and Brews tour was a success. It was a lot of fun. First time we've done a full, kind of tour with multiple stops like that. And so it was great to get out and gather with some catamounts all over and looking forward to what's up next.
One of my favorite parts of this is when we would be anywhere. We would be sitting outside of a minor league baseball stadium, and unbeknownst to us, somebody would just walk up and just say, "Hey, are you guys with Western? Are y'all with WC?" Now,
What are you doing here?
The truth being, we are dressed head to toe in purple, and
That's
there's
right.
Western stuff all around us. But so many people would walk up. "Are you guys with WCU?" We'd say, "Yes." "Well, I went to WCU." We would immediately say, "Did you know about this event? If not, Stacey's
Yes.
over here with a form to get their new contact information and email address and everything like that." Which is to say, if you didn't hear about Ballparks and Brews and you want to hear about things like that in the future, make sure you send us alumni@wcu.edu.
That's right.
Send us your contact information.
Yeah.
Send us the deets.
That's right.
And we'll send you the DM. No, we're not going to DM.
We're not. No, we're absolutely not. But we just coming off of groundbreaking.
Oh, wow. So E.J. Whitmire Stadium is going to look
for the
so
Western
different.
Skybox.
The Western Skybox, great groundbreaking. We had hundreds of people out. It was a beautiful morning in Cullowhee. If you don't know what we're talking about, check it out on the website. We have a just beautiful project for E.J. Whitmire Stadium, and it's going to change the future of Catamount athletics.
It's going to be a little bit messy if you haven't heard, which you should have heard. But if you haven't heard, it's going to be a little bit messy. We're going to be under construction this fall during
Yes.
football season, but construction is good.
That is. Chancellor Brown loves to say, we're going to inconvenience you and it's going to be great.
right.
You're not going to be able to
Absolutely.
park where you want to park. And
Yeah.
gosh, it reminds me of those John Bardeau days when Western had just that enormous expansion of
Yes.
buildings and so many things came online back in the early 2000s. I remember Dr. Bardeau saying something like the new mascot is actually going to be the construction crane. So get used to it, folks. It's going to be really fun this fall. Home opener coming up in a month. Well, kind of a little bit more than that.
Yeah,
but
just a little bit more, but looking forward to that. And
fireworks.
Yeah, going to be fireworks, Labor Day weekend. It's going to be a great time to be in
Catamount
Cullowhee.
football at night.
That's right.
Marching band at night.
Yeah.
It's electric. Golly.
But before we get to football season,
Before
we've got a
that.
few things happening
like
in July.
next week.
That's right.
It's coming up.
What do we got?
Well, we've got new student send-offs, Stacey. We got a whole crew of Catamounts coming up. And last month we got to see so many of them coming to campus for orientation. That's always fun. They're their eyes are so big, their parents are shaking.
I was one of those.
You were in that seat. How did that go?
It went fantastic.
Stacey's son Thomas going to be an incoming freshman.
Yes.
First year student.
Sitting there and it's like, shucks, I'm one of them. I am
You
a
are
parent
one of
this
them?
time. I am not working this orientation. I am one of them.
Stacy's going to have a WCU mom shirt. Coach Miller's got to get that WCU dad.
just have to do
Catamount
it.
Dad. We'll get him the Catamount Dad hat.
That's right.
That'll be great.
Perfect.
That'll be good stuff. Guys, thanks as always for spending time with us again today, for listening to Western Wednesdays.
Thanks, Sam Wallace, for going all over all of the places to produce
Dragging
this
all
for
of this
us and
stuff
make this
out
happen.
on airplanes and
That's
in
right.
Ubers. And we have to thank Zacharias for driving us across Washington, D.C.
Yes.
It was a lot of fun. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, DM, whatever it is you do to get this thing out there. We appreciate that.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
We'll see you next month for another edition of Western Wednesdays. Till then, go
Go
Cats.
Cats.